Hey, what's going on, guys? What's up? So I'm way behind on videos that I'm supposed to make, and for whatever reason, this just came to my mind. I was on the internet, and for whatever reason, I can't even remember how I got here, but I was on the internet and I was searching for castration in prisoners. Don't ask me why I got here, and don't because I couldn't even tell you, right? I can't even remember how I got to this, but it got me thinking about Brother Polight. And everyone knows that he has this criminal indictment, and he's accused of battery on minors. And it turns out that I'll just say up front, I don't know what's going to happen in his criminal case, and I don't know what the outcome is going to be. I don't know if he'll be convicted. I don't know if he'll walk free. But what I do know is that he's up against some very serious charges. Now, with that said, I know that he was indicted, he was arrested, and there was a set of charges out in the beginning, and then those charges were changed, and now they have new charges. And some people would have you believe that the new charges have lesser jail time. They don't. They still have some serious jail time associated with it. Now, setting that to the side for a second, we also know that anytime a person is convicted, there's always a post-conviction proceeding. And I have a couple of videos on that, and I'll try to put a link at the end of this video about post-conviction proceedings or the post-conviction process. But within the post-conviction process, there is an opportunity for a defendant to lessen or eliminate his jail time if he participates in certain programs. Now, this brings me to this, right? Because there are some states which allow for prisoners to be castrated. And it turns out, I think Texas, I think there's 8, I can't remember them all. Texas is one, California is one, and lo and behold, Florida is one of those states. Now, with that being said, Brother Polight was actually indicted in Florida, and his case is in Florida. So I wanted to make this video to ask the community, especially men, that what would they choose, right? What would you choose? Let's say you are in Brother Polight's shoes, and again, I don't know if he's going to win, I don't know if he's going to lose. But let's say you're in his shoes, and in a fantasy world, right? Because we don't know what's going to happen, we can only speculate. So let's just say there's a fantasy world where he's convicted. In a fantasy world where he's been convicted, he has the option to participate in the post-conviction proceedings. And in that post-conviction proceedings, he can basically agree to go into certain programs. Now, if he goes in, so the question I'm asking you guys, would you choose castration in order to avoid a 30-year prison sentence, right? Now, of course, we're talking about state prison, and everybody knows what happens in state prisons versus federal prisons. From my understanding, state prisons are much more vicious than federal prisons. And from my understanding, anyone going to any prison that has this certain title labeled onto them, they're more likely to be assaulted in prison, they're more likely to be abused in prison, and they're more likely to be taken advantage of. So I ask you, what would you choose? Would you choose castration in order to avoid a 30-year prison sentence? So with that said, let me get into the law, right? So I have before me a Florida statute 794.0235, and this is for the administration of medroxyprogesteroneacetate, also known as MPA, to persons convicted of battery, right? I'm going to highlight this word here, battery, but you guys can see what it is, right? And then it goes on, notwithstanding any other law, the court may sentence a defendant to be treated with medroxyprogesteroneacetate, MPA, according to the schedule of administration monitored by the Department of Corrections if the defendant is convicted of battery, right, as described in 794.011, right? And I'm going to skip around a little bit, right? I'm not going to read all of this. I'm just going to skip around. And it goes, if the court sentences the defendant to be treated with medroxyprogesteroneacetate, the penalty may not be imposed in lieu of or reduce or any penalty described in 794. However, in lieu of treatment with medroxyprogesteroneacetate, the court may order the defendant to undergo physical castration upon written motion by the defendant, providing the defendant's intelligent, knowing, and voluntary consent to physical castration as an alternative penalty. So it looks like one of the options in this is to be physically castrated, and I'm assuming that's where they're going to go in and they're just going to remove your reproductive organs, right? Which to me just seems to be kind of an extreme option, whereas if you're taking the medroxyprogesterone, it's more of a chemical option, right? And it turns out that this drug is actually given to women who choose to have this drug, but when it's given to men, it has the effect of actually doing a chemical castration to men, right? And then it goes on, in order of the court sentence a defendant to medroxyprogesteroneacetate MPA treatment under subsection 1 shall be contingent upon a determination by a court-appointed medical expert the defendant is an appropriate candidate for treatment. Such determination is made not later than 60 days from the imposition of the sentence, notwithstanding the statutory maximum periods of incarceration as provided in S.775.082, an order of the court sentences a defendant to medroxyprogesteroneacetate treatment shall specify the duration of the treatment for a specific term of years or in the discretion of the court up to the life of the defendant. So it sounds like this drug, you have to get treatment on a regular basis, and it sounds like you could receive a court order to basically get this treatment for life, right? So it sounds like they can order you to get this treatment for a set amount of years, maybe 2-3 years. And then I guess after that, everything could turn to normal. That's what I'm getting for this. You guys let me know what you think. So again, I'm not going to read all of this, right? But basically, let me read some of those. In cases involving defendants sentenced to a period of incarceration, administration of the treatment with medroxyprogesteroneacetate shall commence not later than 1 week prior to the defendant's release from prison. So there's some situations where people are already locked up. And in that situation, they're going to get, the treatment right before they get released, right? And then we'll just scroll down to the bottom. It says, if the defendant whom the court has sentenced to be treated with medroxyprogesteroneacetate fails to or refuse to appear as required by the Department of Corrections for purposes of administering the medroxyprogesteroneacetate MPA or allowing the administration of medroxyprogesteroneacetate MPA, the defendant is guilty of a felony of the second degree, punishable as provided in S.775.802, right? And 803 and 804, right? So that is a statute. So the reason I brought the statute up is because I wanted to let you guys know that I'm not making this up, so this is real stuff. This is something that's currently in the system, and this is one of the potential outcomes of any case in Florida, in any case in California, in any case in Texas. Now, those states are probably going to have different laws, but this is on the table. And I just wanted to read this just so you guys can see that this is on the table. So now we go back to my questions, and I want you guys to basically put your comments below and let me know what you think. So let's say in a fantasy world, Brother Light is convicted. right? Again, I don't know if he's going to be convicted. I don't know if he's going to walk free. I don't know what's going to happen. I do know that these are some very serious charges, and they can be up to 30 years. And you can, the sentencing can be up to 30 years to life in prison, right? So, what would you choose if you were Brother Polight? What would you choose? And I'm interested to hear what men would say about this. Is it better to have your manhood and be in prison for 30 years to life? Or is it better to have your manhood taken from you, right? And be free in, the free world. Now, I think one of the reasons that they actually do this, and to my knowledge, I would believe that because this statute is available, I want to say that it hasn't been declared unconstitutional. Me personally, I would think that something like this would be unconstitutional, and I would think it would fall under the cruel and unusual punishment clause. But to play devil's advocate, right? One of the purposes, I think prison and sentencing typically probably has two purposes. One of the purposes of prison is actually to punish you, but the other purpose, which we talk so little about, is to rehabilitate you. And one of the things that is kind of tricky is like, how do you, me personally, I think a lot of things are a sign of, I want to say, you know what, I don't hold my feet to the fire on this, but I want to say certain things are a manifestation of a mental illness. And you guys, I'm open to critique. I'm open to commentary. Let me know what you think below. But if you're running around doing the things that Brother Polight is accused of, I think you're probably mentally ill and you have a problem. So if the goal is to rehabilitate people and to make society safer, then my second question to you guys is do you think that it's okay to have this option on the table to basically give prisoners this medroxyprogesteroneacetate or MPA? Do you think this is an okay option? Or do you think this option should be taken off the table because it's cruel, it's unusual, you're basically taking away a person's desire, you're taking away a person's willing to live. And I'm not even going to lie to you. Call me fickle, call me a person of the flesh, call me petty, call me what you want to call me. But in my line of thinking, it's hard for me to imagine a world without sex. And if you're going to go through a chemical castration, then that is basically one of the situations in which I don't even know if I would want to live. Now as I get older, maybe it's less and less important, but I think it still plays other roles in how you act and how you carry yourself, because there's a chemical component, and that chemical component is called testosterone. I don't know if I would want to be a person with zero testosterone. I don't know if this takes away your testosterone 100% completely, but I believe it will affect your testosterone, right? So I don't know that I would really want this, right? And you guys let me know what you think. Do you think that medroxyprogesterone should be an option, should be on the table to people who have been convicted of those crimes? And apparently physical castration is on the table. Do you guys think that should be on the table? Do you think that should be something in our legal system? Now, I would imagine that if a person has no use of their reproductive organs, then that would eliminate 100% any chance of them re-victimizing someone or taking on a new victim. right? Now, of course, I couldn't even imagine what life would be like without any reproductive organs. Like I said, um, to me, life just wouldn't even be worth living. At least as a young man, life wouldn't be worth living. Like maybe if I'm like 85 years old, I just wouldn't even care anymore, right? So let me know what you guys think. Do you think it's okay to first? The first question is, what would you choose if you were in this situation? If you were in Brother Polight's situation and you were offered this plea deal, let's say you get convicted and the prosecutor comes to you and say, well, hey, look, we know you're going to do your post conviction proceeding and we want to give you an offer. We're going to let you forego the 30 years, meaning you don't have to stay in prison for 30 years, and we're going to let you out and you're going to be free. And we're able to do this only if you participate in the program. And if you participate in this program, we know that you're not going to re-victimize anyone, right? We know you're not going to re-victimize anyone. So, what do you choose? Do you choose the program, which is basically going to involve either a physical castration or a chemical castration, meaning that you won't have any use, you won't have any, or you won't have any use of your reproductive organs? Or would you say, you know, screw it, I'm just going to roll with the 30 years, take my chances. Hopefully, I can be out on good behavior in 15, and I can be out in the world enjoying my life, enjoying my what's left of my manhood, so on and so forth. What do you choose? I'm interested to hearing what you're going to say, what you would choose. Would you choose 30 years in prison, or would you choose the chemical castration? Now, the second question is, do you think that this should even be on the table? Do you think it should be an option? Me, myself, I'm torn with this because if I had kids, little kids, I wouldn't feel safe with people running around being released from prison and knowing that, you know, my kids can potentially be kidnapped or someone sneak in in the bedroom window and try to assault them or something of that nature, right? So to me, I'm a little torn. I think the chemical part to me, after reading the statute and doing some basic research, I actually watched a couple of videos of, I guess, of actually women who take, you know, go through these procedures because they want to get some type of regularity in their cycles. I think it's a form of birth control for them, right? So I watched a couple of videos and it seems like it's only temporary, right? You know, so to me, I think the chemical option should be on the table. It should be okay because I think once you stop taking it, there'll be a period of time where it's still in effect. And then after that time, things would turn back to normal. At least that's what I believe. I got to admit, I didn't look into this deeply, but let me know what you think. Do you think that medroxyprogesteroneacetate, aka MPA, should even be on the table for certain people? Do you think that the court system should be administering this type of this treatment to people? Now, I'm going to be honest with you guys. I kind of played around with this a little bit. According to the statute, this is only administered to people who have repeat offending, who are repeat offenders. Let me see, and it's one of the parts where I skipped. I'm not going to find it because I read it and I know it's there, but it's really only for repeat offenders. So, in all likelihood, Brother Polight would not be ordered to take this, right? But I can see a situation where it's offered to him, right? It could be a situation where it's offered, right? Say, hey, because one of the main parts of the post-conviction proceedings is to figure out how much time you can get or you should get. And part of that is based on your chance of reoffending. And if you're not, or recidivism, I think that's what they call it, right? So if your recidivism is pretty low, then, or if your chances of reoffending is low or zero, then there's no need to give you an additional time, right? So if you get into this program and you have absolutely no desire, right, and you have absolutely no use of your reproductive organs, then why would there be a need to keep you locked up, right? So the only thing left at that point is the punishment phase. And with the punishment phase, I would imagine he probably only get like maybe 1 or 2 years or maybe a couple of months in probation, and bam, that's the end of it, right? And I think this is a relevant conversation because in my mind, one of the potential outcomes of his situation could be a plea deal, right? At least I would, if I don't, like I said, I don't know if he's guilty. I don't know if he's innocent, but I've done lots of videos on lots of crimes. And one of the things I've come to realize is that sometimes it doesn't matter if you're guilty or innocent because you're forced to play this game. And this game is not based on your guilt or innocence. It's based on who has the better lawyer, and it's based on how that lawyer maneuvers in the court system, and it's based on your ability to persuade the jury, and it's also based on how much the jury like you. You can be innocent as Jesus, but if the jury doesn't like you, they'll find you guilty, and that's just human nature, right? If the jury doesn't like you, or if judge and jury doesn't like you, and the prosecutor attorney persuades them to basically find you guilty, then that's it. You're done. It's over, right? So that's what I kind of mean. If it doesn't really matter if you're guilty or innocent, because if you think about it, Jesus himself was innocent, but they still crucified him. So if they'll do that to Jesus, they'll definitely do it to somebody like me and you. So, that's a video for another time, but, nothing's promised to you in this world. Anything that you have can be taken away at any time, and that includes your life and your freedom. So innocent or guilt doesn't even matter, right? So that's pretty much it for this video. Questions and comments below. Let me guys know what you think about the potential plea deal. Would you take a deal if it was offered to you whereby you've been convicted and you could potentially, and I need you guys to think about the alleged evidence against Brother Polight and how heavy it is. Number one, they have his reproductive fluids. Number two, they have witness testimony, from the young lady, and then they also have the young lady's mother, and they're also probably going to get the hotel records from the hotels he allegedly took her to. There's going to be a mountain of alleged evidence which they're going to use against him. So keep that in mind when you make the decision. So let me know what you would do. The first question is, would you take the chemical castration for, let's say, 5 years, or would you just take the 30-year prison sentence and just hope that you can get up on, you get a chance of parole after like 10 or 15? And then the second question, do you guys think that this option should be on the table? The chemical castration should be on the table, the medroxyprogesteroneacetate. I don't think the physical castration should be on the table because there's no coming back from that. Like once it's gone, once they chop your stuff off, it's over, it's gone. But with the medroxyprogesteroneacetate, to me it seems like a temporary solution. You have to repeatedly go back and forth for treatment, and I would imagine that once you stop the treatment, then you would basically return back to normal. Don't quote me on that. Don't hold my feet to the fire. I don't know. But nonetheless, do you think the chemical castration should be on the table? Do you think that the physical castration should be on the table? Do you think that this statute should be repealed and removed and eliminated in Florida? That's it for this video. Let me know what you think. Leave your questions and comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe.